saying about symbolism, I forget, in here she talked about it too, but the next level of mind. Okay, the nature of symbolism is crazy. And when I got into like studying symbolism, like what is symbols? Why do we study symbols? What's the point of this shit, right? Like it just seems like this like picture, but really our mind thinks in symbolism. And right now our mind thinks in terms of usually like words or experiences. But for instance, if you really let's think about like just the symbol for like nature, right? If there was this really intense symbol for nature, right, and you thought about all that corresponds to that, the Dharma, right, like the laws of nature. You're thinking about the wilderness, life and death, growth and rebirth. You're thinking about how the trees grow, how the light shines on them. This whole process, right, and that's under this one symbol for nature, right? And then you have all these symbols for all the archetypes and all this stuff. When your mind, in fact, starts thinking, not in thought, not in words, but in symbols, when your mind has ascertained and literally concreted the idea behind the symbol into crystallized knowledge, your mind moves huge pieces. And this is why like revelations have hit me where I'm just like in awe, because like massive things get linked together. The relationship is revealed between like the principles governing life. And it's when you start to think in symbols instead of thinking in, words, which carry a little definition. You're thinking in a symbol, which 500 books could be written about, right? And it's gnarly, bro. But that's how the ancients thought. Like what you were going to say, you were about to dive into language and the fact that, our words and our syntax and our entire language of English, of angles, determines what you could even think about. It determines what you can think about and how you can think about anything, which is gnarly. It's gnarly. And yeah, that's why that's everything.
If you limit what you can think about, or if you confine what you can think about, you can find what you can possibly create or what you can even speak upon.
Mm-hmm.
So concepts or ideas or ways in which like myself and we can be in this world and the new world that can be formed out of it it's almost impossible to describe within the English language, which is so limiting on all levels. And if you just studying primitive languages in general, or different languages and like the words that they have, you can get a clear idea of what this means and like how limiting our perspective is of what we can create through our language. And so you touching on the idea of symbols are as Joseph Campbell talks about, they are what speaks to the soul, and they can grow and live within the soul. It's a living language that can continue to expand. It's all expansive. And so by linking these symbols together, you can literally create anything, because you're closer to the reality. You're closer to the truth of what is, which is like changing, flowing.
There we go. Like the more dense the language becomes, the further away from truth you are, because the language of angles must define and create a rigid order of thought. And in fact, I would almost say that the language of English is what made these constructs of absolutes in our mind when it comes to like good or bad, good or evil. It made these absolutes, right? So therefore, you cannot even it created a larger rift within our minds when we think about truth or like who we are or what we are, because we can't embrace the totality of it, the whole union, because it's in these angles, these constructs, right? And furthermore, getting into the language of the divine, right? The language of the divine, think about it for a moment. It's almost like an LSD trip. Think about God's mind when he's like creating worlds, right? Like whatever concept you have of God, just like think from like that perspective, and just like the process of like it's crazy. It's a straight trip. But Also, what I was just going to say is that it's literally the most fascinating thing in the world to me right now. It's so fascinating. Like, symbols. I never thought I'd be into symbols, right? And like, I thought I used to know what symbols were. I would study the alchemical symbols, so I knew what they were talking about and whatnot. But now it's like, whoa! All of a sudden, you are reading a story, right? And it talks about the prince who goes to slay like the evil monster who is holding the princess as captive. And when it talks about that prince, you instantly recognize, oh, that's the Mars archetype being invoked. That is like the protector energy. That's the guy who wants to go beat up the bully, right? That it's that kind of energy, that archetype. So where's Mars? Mars is your right shoulder. It's on this pillar, right? And you link it up with all the different relationships. When you see a number like 57, which I've always seen my whole life, like now I understand, oh, dang, 57 is talking about these places in your body, these archetypes. What are these archetypes? I have 200 stories that are now linked to those archetypes. So when my mind calls upon the archetype, right, it's such depth of understanding, it's such depth of connection, that like literally worlds are created in your mind. Like you said, the level of thought is infinite. Man's genius is there is no limit to it. It's we can go as far as we want, but yeah, man, symbols is crazy.
Yeah, and what you just did there too was this process. The symbol can take you deep within and can take you also without. It is this like journey. Like you took the story of the prince and took it all the way into the energetic places within your own body. And then you can also link this to cosmic energies as well. And so you literally can create this all-encompassing world, which it includes your inner being and the external reflection of that. And so, yeah, your ability to pull from story all things around you, everything you're experiencing, when you can think in symbols, is constantly revealing the like
the story,
majesty and divine nature of all
the wonder of this place and ourselves. And there we go. And go on.
I have a quote on this. Marcus Aurelius, not directly related to symbols, but this thought just came to me right now. When you can't think in symbols, I'm just going to add to this. When you can think in symbols, he mentions how there's no better moment than the now. Like, he says, come to realize there's no better moment than the now to philosophize. And if you can think in symbols, and you can see what's happening around you through that lens, like you can take your mind to incredible places, and also you can be doing like inner healing work simultaneously.
Yes.
That's beautiful,
bro. And the last point there is, I guess like the purpose of occult symbolism, the purpose of studying, the secret stuff, is truly to gain a grasp of the symbolism that is ever communicating to you throughout the whole world. Every day you live, every situation you get to fits into an archetype. Every day, every single thing you see around you is God communicating to you. It is a divine story. And we can only understand our own stories. We can only understand what we've been through, our pain, our struggle, our darkness, our light, right? Through a comprehension of the archetypal symbols and how they're reflected in our lives in every moment. And like the more you grasp that, man, like all of a sudden you see these numbers over here, you're walking like that one call we had, man, where we were talking about seeds and planting seeds, and then all of a sudden I'm in a cloud of seeds. Symbolism is everywhere. It's everywhere. And like comprehension of symbolism just literally is the portal to absolute marvel and really apprehension of the creator all around us. Is you can't see the creator through language. You can't see the creator through small concepts, through small thought. You must have a very powerful capacity of mind to grasp something that is infinite, that is unbound, and you can get glimpses of this if you can think and understand those symbols. But all the way, man.
Right, and also like I'm getting off of that too. This just came to me that the language of symbols literally connects the mind with the heart, or the mind with the soul. And this is how you can, this is how you break out. And so you literally are thinking from the place of the soul, which is like you're closer to this divine. Your level of awareness at that point is a knowing. It's not a cognitive like logical trying to like piece together where you're at. It's a constant knowing of the universe communicating to you. And so this is the state, like if you can really think in this level, this is the state that you can get into when you know like at all times that you are 100% taken care of, because the doorways and the pathways and the learning and like just what's unfolding in front of you is constantly teaching you and guiding you in the right direction.
And just like, I guess an example of what you're saying there is, I keep pulling this tarot card, and the symbol of the tarot card is the wanderer hiking a mountain that's in the fog, right? And he's going towards a destination. It's kind of glowing at the top of this mountain, but he can't see it, right? And he knows he's on his way. He knows he's the traveler that is blind to the destination, right? And he knows that there's going to be uphill parts and there's going to be downhill parts. He's going to be deceived and he's going to be in ecstasy and enlightened, right? And this keeps coming into play when, my mom, sends me these pictures of my childhood, right? And it gets into a very like emotional time, where you're feeling down. You're like, damn, bro, I'm so far away from where I've been. Like what happened to me, man? Like, what happened to me? Where'd that life go? Where'd the real me go? And you get really sad when you start thinking about these things. But it's like, no matter how I'm feeling, your perspective just grasps. It just touches that symbol of, you're going to the top of this mountain. You're going to a destination you can't see. Love the hard times too. Love the pain, And I guess almost this realization gets into like the nature of spirituality itself. And that is like a lot of people, they link all of their spirituality to almost a state of being, a state of feeling, because all of their spiritual experiences only happen when they're feeling really good. Maybe when they go have a mystical experience, or like, they're on this retreat, they're on the beach, they've been eating really healthy, they've been taking care of themselves, so they're feeling very spiritual. But how about after you get done with work and your boss fired you, right? And then your wife leaves you and you're feeling like shit because you haven't slept in 2 days and you've been eating pizza. Right then, are you still spiritual? What is that? What does that look like? Because like the most spiritual people in the world, the messiahs, they were tested more than anyone. Like Jesus, I love this book about the trials of Jesus. And it really comes into ascertaining a perspective about what you're going through, and then going through it more fully, really embracing it, and not like creating rifts within you against what you're feeling, against what you're doing, against what is.
Right.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah. Man, I love that. That's so real. And I'm actually reading this book right now. I was talking about Bill Plotkin, Nature and the Human Soul, talking about soul-centric development. And what we don't realize as a culture is like we have to, like, spirituality is two-form in nature. There's two forms of it. The first, to really accentuate your spirituality, to enliven your soul, to live from a soul place, you must first descend into the depths of the soul. And this is what Cambell uncovered through all of his mythology. And this is what the power of the language of symbols can allow you to do. Really, what I'm getting right now is like this descent into the soul initiation, in which you must face and go through darkness. This is required. It's also a learning of the language of symbols, because when I was going through my descent into soul, and through this process of soul initiation, what I clung to was actually symbols that started to appear around me. These symbols became a living form of spirituality, became the living language of my connection to God through the dark times. And so it is the dark times that can illuminate this language of soul, and this is what we must learn as we descend into the soul, so that once we move through that and become fully initiated as soul-centric adults, we understand the language completely, and thus can always be guided by it, and don't fall into this state of duality so easily. We find our center balance,
and the symbols are the key to that. Getting through that darkness part. The darkness really increases when you start questioning, or in fact seeing that you're bullshit. That no, that's not right. Or even asking yourself, really, what are you doing? What is this? Who am I? What is good? What is bad? Why? And the deeper you get into, I guess, dissolving the I, it's a destructive process. And symbols are what causes the destruction. Learning is what causes the destruction, and is the lifeline to get you out of it, in the sense that they help you transcend and, in fact, integrate those darker aspects of reality and self, and understand why. Just the last thing I want to say there is, if God is all things, why is there suffering and misery? If God is the ruler or the creator, or is, in fact, in the life essence of all things, why do we lose ourselves? Why do we hate? Why is there misery? Why do we suffer? And it's really trying to see beyond the duality and see God in all forms. Stop rejecting an aspect of God, an aspect of yourself, right? And that really comes from asking the question, and in fact sitting with what you hate, what you never want to look at. And just that goes really deep. I've been, let's get off the shadow and symbolism, because that's so fresh in my mind, man. It's hard to really communicate what I want to.
I love the idea of shadow, because I think that this is really what's missing in a large degree from the world. It is what's missing. It is the pathway forward. We must look at our darkness. And why is it here? Why is it here? This has been a question on my mind for a really long time, and I've come to different answers and different conclusions. And really, I like the idea
those different answers,
relative reality.
Yeah, those different answers are all different views of a symbol, if you think about it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
they integrate in and of themselves over time. And where I was going to go with this is I like the idea of relative reality and ultimate reality, right? And if you look at the universe, and this is a hermetic principle, in these levels of vibration. And at certain degrees of vibration, or within certain laws, you're bound or tied to certain relative realities. But as you begin to progress up that, you can expand past those relative realities, because you have new awareness and new insight into subtlety. And so at the highest level, God's relative reality is that all things are just expression. All things are this. And this is the divine masculine principle that can hold all expression being the feminine, the actual expression form. And so, at that angle, yes, it's all is. And that's where we need to transcend to. But we have to go through the phase of duality in order to integrate, in order to bring more back to the whole than we had when we first arrived. This is the greatest gift we were actually given. This is the Luciferic influence, as Steiner puts it. It's the idea of awareness, right? It is awareness in that regard.
I'm going to tie this straight into Carl Jung right now, which is crazy, because we're putting together some big puzzle pieces, and that is that God is amoral. God's devoid.
Yes.
God's all things, right? Christ is what brings morality. Christ is what establishes the truth. This is why they called him the teacher of righteousness. He is the way, the light, and the truth, right? So if God is amoral, okay, then Christ brings morality. Christ brings it's kind of funny because like Christ is like the opposite of Satan, in a sense that both are God, both are emanations of God, and it is Satan that creates the Christ because Satan needed a pole,
Yes.
right? Like bang, and
Yes.
and that, straight into your life, straight into the esoteric symbolism of that is like, the shit that you hated about yourself, getting into that addiction, like all of that, your descent through the poisoning, through the fracturing, through the pain and the traumas and whatnot, you saw Satan come out of you. Like you saw like the shit that you never want to be, that you never want to see again, right? And in fact, when you saw Satan, that's when the seed of Christ was born, because you wanted to be good, right? And like this is it's crazy, that aspect, and that Christ brings morality, and Christ is like, getting into Kabbalah, like Christ is literally the center that fuels life, right? It is the middle plane. So if God, like the Almighty, the Most High, is above and he's pouring down on you, right? And then the plane of earth and material in all forms is beneath you. Christ is right here. So when it says in the Bible to, treat your body as a temple, and Paul like always says, like, you must be in constant thought that your physical vehicle is a temple to carry the Holy Spirit. This is really powerful, for the sense that we really must separate and identify what we are and what this is and what is God, and know that we are in between, and that this body, we actually, like, all these needs and wants of the body, all the lusts of the body and whatnot, it's not true. In the fact that if we remembered that teaching and actually put it into place, we would realize the true impulse, the true will, which comes from the Christ, which comes from the heart, which comes from the middle of both worlds. And he is the ruler. He yeah, it's kind of crazy, but getting into all that, just wanted to make that point.
No, that's awesome. Because I was just listening to a Steiner podcast on Christ. I've been on that frequency as well, man. And if you think about the symbolism, so if you think about, the Hermetic principle of as without, or as within, so without, and you think about the symbolism of the actual description of Christ's life, and that Christ came down from the heavens into Jesus, and then went down into hell. So he basically brought the above down to the below, and then rose again back to the middle place. And so it's literally combining the above with the below. It's this energetic symbolism of what we must do. And the fact is, too, that the Luciferic influence, as Steiner puts it, or this fall of man and this eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, came prior to Christ's arrival. Why? Because it must come. The darkness always comes before the light. Like, you have to have darkness to have light. And they are the duality. And that is the gift of the darkness that we see here on the world, if we look at it from the macrocosmic perspective, is that the darkness allows us to understand the light. And now we're at a place where we must integrate that fully. We must integrate that morality, that Christ consciousness within us, where we literally combine the dark force with the light force and transmute it into light, into a manifestation.
The world's at a pinnacle point
morality
right now. And I guess when you start asking the question, like, why is it so extreme? Why is, like, the darkness out here so extreme, right? It's funny because I was just thinking about this in terms of my inner life, and that is whenever I, like, with addiction, for example, you'll never actually overcome that addiction until you see it through, until literally like you were doing it to like the most extreme and it destroyed you before you actually have the will to like overcome it. And it's kind of like, once the seed is planted, once you start doing something, right, once you accept it as like a part of you, right, the only way that will be transmuted is, in fact, letting it play out to the most extreme, because that is the only way you can actually see like that part. And in our own lives, we only change after a calamity, like truly. We only take once we just like, holy fuck, I need to change, or I'm gonna be like, I'm either gonna die, I'm going to be like permanently mutilated. I'm going to be like in a place I just never want to see or be again, right? It's only after calamity hits that we take the necessary effort to change ourselves, is after calamity. And this is why two things from that is the reason that a lot of people that, you know, are on our frequency that get to this state of, you know, thought and pursuit is they've gone through tons of suffering because they could only have taken a stand so strongly in a different path, like a way of light, essentially. You could only take a stand that strong if you've been slapped, hit, kicked, and like batted away from the other side. If you must see it to the extreme. And then externally, when we project it as without, we see that humanity, we like as we descended into more of an egoic center, like source, and we descended into this darkness, it had to play out to the extreme. That's why we find ourselves in this time. And it had to do that.
Right.
So that humanity could see what's on the other end of the spectrum. What happens when you don't act in accordance and alignment with Dharma, with the truth, with your soul,
yes.
and don't act out of love. What happens? Or else what will happen is, you know, 300 years down the road, 500 years down the road, oh, it's not that big of a deal if you just lie for a minute to get that money or something like that. You know, like you'll deviate a little bit. You'll deviate back into the darkness because it's not, it's bad, but like, it's not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? Unless it's so fucking like prime in your face, like this is what happens if you go that way. You know what I mean? So
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And it's also fractal. It's a Fibonacci spiral of awareness. And it requires, when you're first going down this process, extremes usually wake people up. Extreme sickness, extreme addiction, extreme depression, whatever it may be. An extreme in which you, at a moment of like grace, opened the door to your soul when you asked a higher question. And then you started to see your extreme for what it is, and so you can work back from that. But as you start to sensitize yourself, these extremes become less extreme or apparent to other people's eyes, but you start to feel them so fully. And so this is why, like, the smallest lie can just, like, rip at the soul of someone who's doing this work, or the smallest, like, addiction, which someone else is like, when I'm right now working on caffeine, and people think I'm crazy, like, caffeine, like,
they haven't taken it to the
extreme
extreme
and how it affects me, and it's extreme to me, but it's not necessarily extreme to someone else. But I've come from such a far extreme that now I'm just more subtle. And
bro,
so it's literally this, like,
the people out here that I never see progress, they aren't like, it's almost like the individuals that were born with the stronger spirit, like, take things way harder. They do it way more extreme. Like, when I got into, like, I set a goal to, I wanted to be a billionaire. I did it so extreme. Like, I did everything in my, like, but when I got into drugs, I did it to the most extreme. Like, how every single way I could rationalize and, like, just, like, I just need it. I want it, right? And I would take it to the extreme, like, in sports and everything. And that's really a sign of, like, a stronger spiritual impulse, right? And also, like, a more like you're running through life kind of thing. And the people who would just have, like, half a foot into everything, they're kind of into that. They kind of like this too. They drink on the weekends. Like, they're kind of like bland and average. These people never progress because they never hit walls and they never fall off the fucking cliff. Like, they never hit rock bottom. They're in the slow descent. Right? They kind of eat healthy because they never seen the other side. They kind of get into something. Like, if I do something, I only do that. Like literally, my whole life, it's always been like a singular thing. And I guess that's really a defining aspect. So, like, if you're trying to overcome addictions, take it to the most extreme. Like, that's a crazy fucking thing to say, but, like, at the same time, that might slap you out of it. Like,
right. it's about looking at it fully too, completely looking at it and feeling it like absolutely fully. And this is actually a war going on in society, creating this like fragile, this like fragility amongst humans, in which we like keep our temperature thermostats at the exact same temperature. We create all these like organized structures around us and routines which keep everything confined, and the gap of our experience is narrowed, and this shuts off the soul, this shuts off life in us, and so we're not able to actually like experience or hit rock bottom.
Security
or, like,
and comfort,
feel to the full.
Security and comfort.
Yep.
That's death.
Yep.
It's the tightest chain you'll ever wrap around yourself, man. When do you feel most alive? When you're running on the edge of a cliff.
Or jumping like freezing cold lake, you know?
Yes. Like severe contrast right in front of you. And this is really one of the most powerful things that I ever realized through experience, and that was hiking out in Wyoming in the middle of winter. And I had my backpack, I had water and whatnot, I had clothes. I was probably like 5 miles from my car. It's a blizzard, I don't really have food. Like, I'm low on supplies and stuff. And it's like, all of a sudden, like, I really can't break an ankle because my phone died. Like, I really can't fuck up right here because I will die. Like, I will die tonight if I don't make it. And like, so it's that imposes over you a severe order of self-reliance, a severe order of perfection, where when you're jumping down this boulder field, because you're trying to get, I climbed this mountain, you're coming down this boulder field, like each jump is perfect. It's strong, right? Each landing is perfect. There is no question in your mind anymore of like, oh, I'm just going to like sit back and chill for a little while. It's getting dark. It's getting cold. I need to get back. You know what I mean? Like, and this, and then you think about like the indigenous, bro, every day was like that. Every moment. They don't have a phone. They don't have infinite supplies of water and all these technical gadgets on them and shit. Like, there's bears out here. Like, it's a wild land. Beyond this campfire they have, it's the unknown, right? And they lived in constant contact with this, I guess, death, like literally survival. And that's what makes you feel alive when you're not secure. When you can't just, I'm just going to, when you don't have a kitchen with food right there and you got to go get it. Like everything, like it really feels more human. And that's what really brought me to, kind of affirming the more of aesthetic lifestyle in terms of, you showed me too, hiking or longboarding or biking to the park instead of driving there, walking to school or your job instead of driving, even if it takes 25 more minutes. When I go outside at night now, when I go for my walks and I sit there, I don't bring my phone. And I'm realizing that because of this comfort, because of this easy source of distraction, because that we can just like instantly, entertain ourselves, instantly get some dopamine and whatnot, we aren't in touch with reality. We aren't in touch with other people. And we aren't in touch with the truth of what this existence is and the fact that you could die in the next moment. We don't. This is so far from our conscious minds, and this is what makes us feel so dull and in a haze. So now it's like, when I'm walking down the street, like I'm not looking at my phone. I'm not, I don't have earbuds in. Like, people walk by me, I say hi. Like, it's, everything. When at night, instead of, having someone else tell you their thoughts, instead of having music playing and giving you those ideas, instead of watching a movie or something, you sit outside for 2 hours with the stars. You know how many people do this? Zero. It's like I'm alone in the world, watching like this like automated program go on around me. I'm in this field for a couple hours by myself without my phone, and I don't see a single soul of the thousands of people around me, like outside. Not a single soul. And it's like, that's when your thoughts come through. It's really crazy, man, how far away we are, and it really starts with this like security, comfort, and distraction. Is the plague of mankind.
Right. Yeah. You you end up becoming not aware of yourself, right? So even the subtle level of stress that you may be under, or whatever you're experiencing, these addictions that you may have, when your life is constant and you're just like in these habitual patterns and you're just like getting these comforts that are all around you without actually needing to get in touch with your intuition, you don't actually know what state of mind you're existing in. This is why contrast is so important. You have to have contrast. You have to put yourself in a frozen lake to feel what real physical stress on the system feels like, to get out of that water and know what it feels like to be not in that state. And then when you start to experience stress in your daily life, you can recognize it immediately. Go outside, take your shoes off, put your feet in the ground, and like literally channel that energy back into the earth, or whatever you need to do in order to change your state. But like, if you're not constantly experiencing the extremes, you don't know where you exist, and you're constantly in a state of just like being unaware of yourself and your environment, and that is death. Like unawareness, you're never actually living.
Bro, you know? I really highly recommend you read Self-Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson, or just listen to the audiobook. And this idea spurs so many questions, in the sense that, is the only reason that you're not a genius is because you don't actually like let your own thoughts happen. We, like most people out here, they don't consider themselves a master nor a genius, right? And is it because they don't think? The reason I feel like I've progressed so rapidly is the fact that I had a YouTube channel and a place to express my ideas, right? And I wasn't sharing, this is what's going on in the news. This is my thought. Yes, Carl Jung said this. Yes, Manly P. Hall touched on this, but this was my insight from that, right? And when you actually, write down your own thoughts, when you write down your own ideas, when you sit out under the stars and let your own ideas come to you instead of listening to someone else's, that's what develops your capacity to think, right? And original work is what progresses nations. It's like, if you think about like Western philosophy was built by one man, essentially, or a couple, like Plato, Sophocles, and Aristotle. Christianity came from one man, Christ, who had Christ's teachings. He wasn't teaching anybody else's stuff. It was Christ's ideas, right? Buddha wasn't saying, this is what this guy said back here. And, I kind of vibe with, no, this is his teaching, okay? Like any great person who brought forth his own ideas, they started a movement, something that, like Carl Jung, his ideas, they're so revolutionary that there's this whole Jungian psychology, like, balloon going on. And this whole institution, this whole movement came from one man and his thoughts. And we're all capable of this, but we don't pay attention to our own ideas. We like to read other people's ideas and, oh, he fucked up here. I don't agree with this part. But it's like, have you ever, a lot of people think they know things. Try to explain it to someone. Try to write it down in a crystallized exact form, and it will force you to really consider each aspect of this, and this develops your own ideas, your own capacity to think. And furthermore, getting back to thinking in symbols, you are creating symbols, you are creating large ideas, these thought forms that you are familiar with working with. So that when I mention Hermeticism, when I mention the law of polarity, or as within, so without, you have considered it. You have gained your own insight. And the only truth that's real, the only truth in reality is that which you know to be true to you because you have conceived it. No, like, I can't teach you shit, and you can't teach me shit, and I can't teach a single soul in the world a single thing. I can only give people a seed. I can only express an idea to someone. They must conceive of it on their own to understand it. And this gets to self-reliance, man. And that, I just explained all that with thought and ideas, but it gets down to feeling. When we're feeling a different way, we judge it to be, oh, I'm hungry, oh, I'm sad, oh, I'm this. And then you reach for something, right, to enhance that feeling or change it. And we never actually understand what we feel. We never understand why we feel like that. Because we're constantly out here. So it comes down to thought, ideas, self-reliance in all things. Anti-security, anti-comfort is key. But yeah, that Self-Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson, it gets you really thinking. I could probably write a couple of books based off that one essay. Like,
dude, that was beautiful. Thanks for that download.
Yeah.
That was epic. Yeah, man, a lot comes up for me in just listening to in regards to self-reliance, and one that came to me quite strongly was also Steiner's work called Philosophy of Freedom, Intuition as a Spiritual Path, in which he talks about the only way to actually have freedom is...
Can you stop ruffling your mic? It just keeps crackling.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Sorry. That's better. Yeah, he says that the only way to actually have freedom is to know where your thoughts originate from and to be able to decipher your thoughts from someone else's or something else's. And this is touching into awareness. This is why awareness is so critical. This is why self-reliance is so critical. This is why experiencing extremes is so critical. Because if you can be aware of your thoughts, right? Most of our addictions are implanted in us, right? Yeah. Most of, all of our advertisements, all of our TV programs, all of these things that are telling us that we're tired, we're sick, we're all these, and they're implanted in us, and then we act upon them because we don't know the origination.
Because we think that they're us, bro. This is everything.
Yes.
This is truly the most exact definition of the esoteric science I could give you is the discernment of impulses that come from either the personality, the ego, or the soul, and impulses that come from astrological correspondences, just like the energy around you in the environment, and impulses that come from a higher source like God or inspiration or divine revelation. And the whole nature of esoteric philosophy is to separate the subtle from the gross, like Hermes said. Separate.
Yes.
And know.
Yes.
And direct your energies according to the true will, the divine plan. And getting back to what you were saying about we don't know our own thoughts. We literally don't know them. Where do you're probably thinking in terms of things that you've seen in the movie before. You've read somewhere else, right? I was just actually thinking, I was listening to the song Great Spirit by Nako, right? And before I saw the music video of the song, when I would sing that song or play that song, it was literally like a prayer from me to the Most High. It was like a prayer and communion with me in the spirit, right? And all the visuals were created from my own mind, and it was my own thoughts about where I am, what I'm doing, and this connection that I know I have and that I feel right now, right? But after I saw the music video a few times because it was playing on my laptop, I realized really the most deceptive nature of music videos in general, and why they put all the occult symbolism in music videos, is because I can never listen to that song again and sing it as if it was a song that is coming from me to the Great Spirit. Every single time I listen to that song now, all these images of Nako, standing in the desert with his hands up flashes into my mind all of a sudden. It's almost like that song, now I'm watching it instead of it flowing through me. And it's because I'm not creating it with my own mind. All these thoughts that are coming to me when I hear that song are associated with this visual I saw. And now you realize the power of all of this music videos and occult symbolism and logos and all this deceptive marketing, and the fact that, when you feel a certain way, the thought that instantly arises from that feeling, from that emotion, is associated with things you've seen, not what you have thought of.
Yes.
Which is fucking gnarly.
Super gnarly, man. And we're all in this, and it's so deep, and there's still so many layers I'm uncovering in my life, and this is what we all need to wake up to and realize our own ability to discern, our own ability to know and feel. And this is why nature is so important. We have to remove ourselves from sterile environments. We have to
What happened? Yeah, everyone watching on YouTube, we're about an hour in. Hit that like and share button. This is a nuts convo with my boy Hayden. Okay.
Sorry.
What were you saying?
About that.
It's all good.
I gotta come in. Yeah, man, I was just saying, like, this is why nature's so important. Nature can mirror and reflect the soul. Nature can allow you to deprogram, literally extract these programmed thoughts that you just spend a lot of time. Get out in a way in which will challenge you. Find edge in nature. Just like go on a backpack trip yourself, like for a day or two, and camp and watch these thoughts unravel themselves. And sometimes it can be very like uncomfortable experience, sort of like, yeah, you're pouring water on a hot coal, this like sizzling experience. But we need to do this in order so that we can walk back into the world with a level of awareness and we can see the programming.
I got in probably like the tightest spot, like this summer. I've been on working this, and because I am so curious and I learn so rapidly, and like because my purpose and my path here is to do with communication of ideas, teaching, and I guess showing. Like I'm so extreme in that, man. I tied myself in the most deceptive and tight knots that literally almost destroyed me, in the sense that, you know, after you read all this sacred knowledge and all these holy books and stuff, your thoughts about what you should do and what you should be is like, it's so gnarly. It's so and the more, like Carl Jung said, the more of the unconscious mind, the more of God that is revealed to you, the greater your responsibility. So it's like, there's this huge weight on my shoulder, and there's this like, yo, you gotta be like this solid fucking pillar. But I'm like, I can't do it, man. I've been trying. Why can't I? And it's like, and bro, I had to go, and I'm still continuing this. I'm just at the beginning, really. And that is, yo, some magic mushrooms really helped me show me this too. It's like, yo, you know, jack shit. Not a single word of the Bible is true. Not a word of it. Yeah, it contains truth, but you must think it, conceive it, and experience it to know it or live by it. And then I was realizing, like, this is why someone can never give you a code or a creed or a way of being. This is why no holy book will ever do the job. Is that it, in fact, actually cuts you more up. It places more burden on your. This is why, like, when Moses brought the Torah and the law, that no one could follow it, because it's like, yo, don't do that, don't fornicate. But it's like, I don't know why. Like, I really want to, though. Like, I want to. Yeah. Like, but like, no, you can't do that. You know what I mean? And
totally,
bro, it's crazy because of how much information we can receive in this day, that these pillars get erected everywhere. And it came down to, like, where the point where I'm just like sitting in nature or walking in nature, and I had to do this hours every day, and just a mantra like, yo, like, I like, the truth is only within me. Nature will reflect it to me. Like, stop like trying to break out of these boxes which I built so concrete in my mind, right? And I was actually getting lost because, you know, the Tao was telling me this, then I got Julius Evola and Nietzsche and Western philosophy telling me this, and then I got the mystery teachings of Kabbalah telling me this, and then you got to be this way, and then, you know, this great teacher telling you to be this way, and it's like all of these get so conflicting, especially once you start building them strongly, to the point where I am just this chaotic disformity of non-unification. There's so many disparate aspects of me. Like, I'm fractured because, you know, like, me in this exact situation, 10 things are the right path and I need to do that. It's like, fuck. So it's getting back into, yes, nature will reflect it to you, and truly seeing what you think is true, seeing what you feel is right, and doing that without judging yourself in your mind and telling you you're shit or you're bad. And like, it's so difficult, but that is the only way. And to ever refine that, yeah, man, it's like, I saw the extreme end of that, and it was the most like insane thing ever, because like, oh fuck, I just built a prison in my own mind, and I don't know if I'll be able to escape this kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, and it's like part of that is, I mean, all of that is purposeful in a way, in which you're creating self-resilience, you know, and building these constructs that you then have to break out of, and that just creates a lot of strength, for one. But two, there's also the level of, you know, the wisdom of letting go of the I and allowing, like, let's call it allowing Christ consciousness to move through you, allowing Christ to take it over. So it's like not I, but the Christ in me, the Spirit.
And
in
right
me
there,
is what.
Right there, that is the truth, in the sense that, if the Christ was here right now, or like if you were acting from the Christ center, you wouldn't think about, this is what I should do, this is right, this is wrong. No, it would just be like, boom. There is no thought about what, like, judgment. This is what you and me are really facing right now, is this mind that's constantly criticizing us, saying, you should have started that months ago. You got to be doing this. Like, you should be more like this, or like, that mind that's criticizing you. The Christ don't have that, because he is in the most solid conviction that he is, right? And that is only found by building reliance on what are our instinctual expression. This is what Hermes talked about in the union of understanding and sense. Okay? When you can combine understanding with sense, right, then your instincts are true. This is alignment of the forces within. This is probably the greatest work I'll ever bring forth one day. And it'll be a great work on aligning the forces within, in the sense that, when Moses brought the law, the Torah, don't do this, love your brother. It's like, but I want to do this. Why did these images I want to do this, or like, I like to do this, or I hate to do that, though. But the law says no, right? And in fact, aligning the forces within would be to where your emotions, your personality, your ego are all perfectly integrated to, be a vehicle for the true will, to align the forces to the soul's purpose, right? So that there is no confounding thought. There is no discord between the thought and action. It is simply one, like where the awareness and the mind and the heart just merge. Yeah. So
Exactly. Yeah, that's beautifully put, man. And it has to be, in order to reach this state, I've realized it has to be rooted in what Christ is, which is love for all humanity. It cannot be rooted in any sort of self-gain. This eliminates your ability to align these forces within and move within the divine will.
Yes.
You're literally moving for the will of the universe, which
Yes.
is for all living beings, and allowing that to come through you.
The entire, idea of aligning the forces within is founded on the principle of the true will. The true will being that of the will of your soul spiritual self. The true will, not the will of anything programmed, of anything that the ego wants, right? It's founded on that true will, on that Christ principle, right? Love it, like the love of all humanity and your brother, and combined with wisdom. It's like Lucifer and Christ combined. And then what else I was going to say is just an example of that. Is I was just thinking the other night, like, I was having some profound revelations, like big ones, because I was thinking in terms of symbolism, like for like one of the couple of first experiences I've had with this over the past month. And it got to the point where it was just like, bro, all I want in life is to be able to, have someone else experience and have that revelation, right? And then it was like, but not everyone. People got to work for that, right? Like, that voice came into my mind. And then the Christ overpowered me, in the sense that, I want that for everyone, period. And I don't even want it to come from me. Like, I just want that for everyone. I want there, like, because I was thinking, like, right away that voice came in, and it was like, oh man, I would love to be that Hierophant teaching, to have that revelation, right? And I didn't even realize that was coming from an ego place, because ego is deceptive in the sense like, oh, I would love to be the person giving this, right? Giving this to someone.
Yeah.
But the Christ, like true unconditional love and true abandonment of, greed or the ego I, would be that of, I want everyone to realize this and have me not even seen.
Dude, exactly. And dude, that aligns so fully with one particular parable from the Gospel of Thomas came to mind when you were describing that. And it's the one, I don't have it like perfectly memorized, but I think she's carrying, it's a woman, he says the kingdom of heaven is like the woman carrying a pot of seeds. Unknowingly, the pot has a hole in the bottom, and she is walking, and the pot is spilling out the seeds as she is walking towards her home. When she gets home, she finds the pot empty, meaning that like it is the spreading forth of your ideas, of your wisdom, of your truth, of these revelations,
like
without
what
you
give.
knowing it. You are living it.
Yes.
And then they are taking root everywhere around you.
Yeah.
And like I wrote this down from a Steiner lecture last night, and it says, ideals rooted in Christ are seeds for all humanity. Ideals rooted in I are seeds of Lucifer. Not I, but Christ in me carries ideas rooted in him, which bear our distinct nature forward forever, continuously bearing fruit. In a sense, our individuality merges with Christ, with the Christ being, and thus continues to work down upon man and upon earth from the spiritual plane. And this is all just like has to come from a place of for all humanity, and those revelations that you had are seeds for everyone, whether they have the soil prepared to allow them to grow or not. That's their work to be done.
Yeah.
Yours is just to cast out seeds blindly.
Yeah, man. One day I'll definitely like write that down to think on, but how deceptive the ego is when it's trying to be spiritual or when it's trying to be selfless. It is the most gnarly deceptions we tie ourselves into. Like you're trying to help someone, but in some fucking weird, fucked up way, it's actually the ego trying to like gratify itself, or you trying to be prideful, and the abandonment of pride in all ways. I guess it's in fact the dissolution of the narrow I into a more group soul perspective and like collective evolution, in the sense that in fact you can't even conceive of ideas or think in terms of the Christ if your I is not fixed in him, or else any idea or thought you have will be coming from this perspective instead of one that is dwelling in here, right? So like, yeah. Yo, thanks for watching, everyone. I'm going to end this here with my boy Hayden.
Yep.
That was the most amazing talk. Definitely share this, cut it up, edit it, put it on your own YouTube channels, and hit both of us up if you want to chat. Love all the comments. Anyways, if you want to work with me, links in the description. Me and Hayden will be back very soon. Anyways, catch you guys later.
Thanks, guys.